Welcome back to Never Did It. This episode is about The Devil Wears Prada and The Devil Wears Prada 2. I'm Brad Garoon. I'm here with Jake Ziegler and very special guest, Professor Jeff Richardson. The three of us just saw this movie about 24 hours ago. It's the first time, I think, in the history of Never Did It that the three of us saw a movie at the same time. And wouldn't you know it, we actually recorded this episode already, and something went wrong. It's my fault. Only 2 minutes of 40 minutes of conversation got recorded, but we're running it back immediately. Our thoughts are very fresh. Before we get into The Devil Wears Prada 2, tell us real quick, what do you think of The Devil Wears Prada 1 as our resident Devil Wears Prada 1 fanboy?
And I should clarify, I didn't know until 48 hours ago that I was a Devil Wears Prada fanboy. So let alone that I would be on a podcast discussing this. That is even less information. It was like 24 hours ago that I learned about that. So I had seen this film when it first came out 20 years ago, which is scary to say. I thought it was pretty good. It was not one that I revisited a lot. I didn't think I'd seen it in a long time, probably like 10 years or so, until I rewatched it 2 nights ago. And I had a great time. I thought, this is a classic for a reason. Really, for what it is, it's a near perfect movie. It's just a blast for me to revisit. Part of that is kind of personal nostalgia because, again, I was a young adult. Remembered watching that movie. I moved to New York in 2006, which is the year that the movie was made. So it's very much hit home in that way. But just the montages, the music, the jokes, the performances. Meryl Streep as Miranda is just iconic, deservedly so. It's amazing performance. And I just had a blast. And so I just think there's no one who could possibly watch this movie, certainly not of our generation, and not just think it was a brilliant, great time. Isn't that right, Jake?
Something like that. Yes, I certainly understand its classic status, and I get that I'm going to be in the minority here, but yes, I was like you, hadn't seen the movie in a very long time, probably maybe since it came out. I know Meryl Streep was nominated for the Oscar for this, her 15th or 16th or whatever it was at the time. She did not win this one. But yeah, so I had seen it then and I remember really liking it. My Letterboxd score was 3.5, which is pretty good. So I sat down to watch it probably 3 or 4 nights ago. It was a couple nights before we went to the sequel. And so I was rewatching it. And I was shocked, actually, by how much I didn't like it. And I just found it very unpleasant and mean in a way that didn't really pay off. There are movies where there are characters who are unpleasant or mean. And it's not necessarily that they get comeuppance. It's not that I'm looking for that necessarily. But just, I'm always looking for some kind of interesting resolution or growth or, something to kind of make the journey worthwhile. And I didn't feel that way about the first movie at all. I just kind of felt like it had this mean, kind of nasty undertone to it. And it just didn't work for me in the same way that it works for, I guess, most other people.
And I fall somewhere in between. I was never really into fashion, so that stuff kind of all went over my head. I've always thought Anne Hathaway was great, but didn't think her character was super compelling. When I watched this movie the first time, I was kind of dismissive of the whole thing, and that was probably 6 years ago. And then I watched it also 2-3 nights ago, and just was taken by Meryl Streep's performance. I thought she was kind of incredible and going much harder than she needed to, but that's just who she is. She's fantastic. And I was much more forgiving of the things that people really complain about in the movie, like Adrienne Granier's character, which is very divisive now, with some people thinking it works in the movie and some people thinking he was such a petulant twit that it doesn't make sense that she would even bother with him. I fall somewhere in between. This feels very authentic. New York hospitality chef guy who thinks that the art of cooking is more important than anything else. And the Jarlsberg grilled cheese is so foodie bullshit. Don't do that. Don't put $8 worth of cheese in your grilled cheese sandwich.
Well, he probably got it from the restaurant or something, right? He probably got a deal.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you're reminding me of something I did want to say about this, which is that the boyfriend character being so divisive. And then I feel like there's other parts of the movie, like Emily Blunt. There's this whole dynamic as the movie ends where it's Anne Hathaway can't believe that Meryl Streep would betray Stanley Tucci, and it's this revelation, but Meryl Streep flips it on and she's like, well, you did the same thing, and it's supposed to be oh my God, you're right, I did this, I betrayed Emily Blunt. But then I think a lot of people watch the movie and well, she was literally hit by a car. I don't think she didn't literally steal her, and I find these kind of messy plot things or arguable plot things make the movie even better. It's almost like the flaws make it even better, especially 20 years later, you're watching it this movie's just got all these squishy bits that are make it extra juicy, where you could argue about or debate about. So anyway, I wanted to get that in there because I think that the boyfriend debate actually makes the movie better.
Well, I agree. a movie cannot stand the test of time without something like, was Adrienne Grenier the worst or just annoying? And should she have slept with Simon Baker? And that kind of, which is so tossed off. I think we can all agree that Simon Baker's character is like nothing, except he's very good looking. Adrienne Grenier is also very good looking, but Simon Baker is also like aspirational for her, is who she wants to be.
I mean, he's rich and wealthy and not a sous chef.
Right. And he's a journalist.
Yeah. Right.
And he can get the Harry Potter manuscript, which of course, obviously a journalist could get, right? I mean,
that drove me so crazy. I actually got actually annoyed with that. I was like, this is just like, I don't know, why are we deifying a boss who would make somebody do this? Why? I don't know. That's why I didn't buy the Anne Hathaway character at all. Like, why is she all of a sudden doing everything to please this one woman?
Well, they said why. Stanley Tucci's like, if you're going to do the job, you need to do the job. And that's the job. I don't think that deifies Meryl Streep. I think that whole thing shows that Anne Hathaway can do literally anything.
I think Anne Hathaway deifies her is what my problem with the movie is. I don't like that.
I don't know that she ever really does.
I think she agrees to put up with it. Yeah. And then at the end, she says enough is enough.
Well, I'm also maybe including my thoughts on the second movie, too, where, again, Anne Hathaway bends over backwards to do everything to keep Miranda in this position and keep her happy. I don't know. Still not buying it. Sorry.
We don't need to convince you to buy it. But let's talk about the second one. Whereas in the first one, you had Jeff as the super fan. I'm somewhere in the middle and Jake's at the bottom. For the second one, I'm the super fan. Jeff's somewhere in the middle and Jake still hates this franchise.
Right. And like I was saying, I didn't like the dynamic between Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep. I just think, Meryl Streep is cruel and nasty and mean to her. And Anne Hathaway just wilts like, a little flower every time she's around her and just doesn't really seem to have any thoughts of her own or anything really going on there. And I thought, to project some of my own thoughts, into the second movie, I thought, okay, there's going to be maybe a different dynamic here. Anne Hathaway's 20 years older. She's had, we talked about a great career. She's been very successful in the 20 years since the first movie happened. She's going to be a more confident adult human being. And, the second she walks into the office, everything kind of reverts right back to where she was before, where she's just this like little wilty flower who cries every time Meryl Streep looks at her cross. It felt like there was, absolutely nothing different about the characters or their dynamic. And I know that's probably what a lot of people want to see. Like you said, legacy sequel, you've got, people to please with this movie. I totally get that. It just didn't grab me as anything that I wanted to see 2 more hours of, because I had already seen 2 hours of it and it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I think that's a little reductive and not actually what was going on. I mean, she is scared. She doesn't want to lose the job. But whereas in the first movie, it was all about herself. And that's kind of what Adrienne Grenier is mad at her about, that she totally changed her personality and what she's interested in for the sake of advancing her own career. Here she has these other people who she's brought onto the magazine, and she sees herself as sort of a savior of them as well. We didn't talk about this the first time around, but I want to bring it up now. Do either of you recognize the actor who played her Yankees cap-wearing friend?
He looked so familiar, but I couldn't place it.
I have never seen him before, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, is this a joke on Kevin Feige? Why is this guy wearing a baseball hat nonstop? Larry Mitchell as Mac. He's like, doesn't have a Wikipedia page. That was a weird choice that I actually found distracting. I found very little else distracting, aside from some things that didn't work in terms of resolutions between like Miranda and Nigel. I thought their relationship sort of came to a head in a way that wasn't very satisfying, or maybe was trying to be too satisfying and didn't feel earned or real. But I really liked the way that Streep had been sort of beaten down by this bigger world. Now it's not just Condé Nast or whatever that they called Condé Nast in the movie that's, breathing down her neck, but also, Amazon or whatever Justin Theroux's billionaire is actually in charge of in this version. And then also just like the glowing angelic beauty of Lucy Liu and the attempt to get Mackenzie Scott to give you an interview. And then because she was softened, she got to be a little funnier and not just mean. And I thought in general this movie was the overarching story of the movie was much more bleak than the original movie, because it's about how the world is not going to give you anything, and you probably can't get a happy ending unless you compromise your integrity and your dreams. I actually thought it was less mean, even though this one killed a character and the last movie didn't do that. Jeff, what'd you think?
Like you said, I'm the one in the middle now. It's not as interesting maybe to be in the middle. So I agree with a little bit of each of you. They definitely did try to get in that same dynamic again, like Jake was saying, but that's what the fans want. I mean, so they want, you can imagine trying to like write this property, they're like, we need a sequel 20 years later. Okay, we have to figure out how to get Anne Hathaway back into trying to please Meryl Streep, because that's what people are going to want to see. So they give us, a good, 20, 30-minute section of that, which I think I was happy to do. I mean, I thought it was good, but I think, to Brad's point, I mean, they softened Meryl Streep. So they actually try to change it. They try to make it different. To me, that didn't work as well. I didn't really like as much what they did with the Meryl Streep character. I mean, I liked that I think it's a good idea. It just didn't really work. I feel like some of the steps that they showed to have her becoming a more complex character, a more sympathetic character, no longer the actual villain of the story. Now you've got the tech billionaires are the villain. Again, good ideas on paper, just didn't really work for me in practice. I mean, it worked for me a little bit. I mean, I enjoyed the movie, and then again, I like the ideas that Brad was saying. It's like the big picture, like, okay, now we're in the new world. The movie actually addresses that with, media consolidation, right? And, the death of the magazine industry, they even like hint at like AI, I think, in a couple of points. I mean, they sort of they tackle all these things, again, really smart ideas to do, but the actual like ride of the movie, I just didn't, and maybe it's because I enjoyed the first one so much. I mean, I just felt like I just did not enjoy the ride this time nearly as much. They have some fun stuff. They put in a lot of fan service stuff, which is occasionally I really enjoyed. Occasionally I rolled my eyes really hard. They try to get all the characters have their little endings. We have the endless endings. Brad, in your Letterboxd review, you made reference to Return of the King, which I think was very funny, because it's definitely like, okay, now we're wrapping up. Oh, no, now 2 more characters have to meet and and now Stanley Tucci actually reveals that he set the whole thing up, and we have all these reveals and very phony seeming like meeting up character heart to hearts at the end that I felt like, most of them weren't really necessary or went on too long. And then there's the boyfriend plot, which was totally fine, but didn't feel necessary. Certain scenes, like the trip to the Hamptons, was like, okay, cool, like fashion Hamptons celebrities, but like felt totally unnecessary.
But without it, how do you jam in all those cameos? You can't have all the cameos in Italy.
Exactly. Yeah. We needed more cameos.
I heard a really interesting thing about the cameos here, that they wanted to have as many cameos, especially fashion industry cameos, as possible, because when the first movie came around, the fashion industry would not participate because they were really scared of what Anna Wintour would do to anyone who participated. And now Anna Wintour gets a real kick out of all this. So it's also, I think, the reason that they were a little lighter on Streep's character.
Yeah, that's a good point, probably. So yeah, I don't know. I had a good time at the movies, but I was also kind of disappointed.
I should say I came into this was a big movie weekend for me. The day before, I watched I'm trying to watch every animated movie that comes out in 2026. And sometimes 3 of them will come out on the same day. And that happened yesterday when Swapped debuted on Netflix, and then Animal Farm and The Time I Married a Slime, Azure. I actually can't remember what Azure, but Azure, the Azure movie. They all came out on the same day. The second 2 came out in theaters. So I watched all 3 of those, and Swapped is okay. In fact, a perfectly fun movie to watch with your kids if you have them, or on your own on Netflix. But holy crap, Andy Serkis's Animal Farm is really bad. And The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime movie, an anime that I caught up on so I could watch this movie in the theater, it's really boring. So I was coming into this like really needing something to be fun, and this was big and splashy and fun. I was happy with the way that it handled the legacy sequel trope of like catching up with the characters that we haven't seen in 2 decades, where a lot of the times in these legacy sequels we'll learn that the lives of our favorite character has been terrible since they're happily ever after, and now they're going to rebuild themselves to that. And in this, I like that everybody sort of had the life they wanted, but not on solid enough footing. So right as the movie starts, their life falls apart and then they have to rebuild. And I think that's a lot more satisfying. That's sort of the way the John Wick movies work. The end of most John Wick movies are like, I won. Oh shit, it all went bad at the end, right at the very, very end. Got to build myself back up. And I thought this was kind of similar to that. And the John Wick movies are perfect. So it was great that this did that.
Yeah, I agree. I liked what they did picking up the movie, and it totally makes sense. I think a lot of the choices they made sense. I just didn't enjoy the ride as much as I was hoping to. And some of the smaller choices just bothered me with some of the characters. I just didn't. We didn't even mention Emily Blunt. I mean, they had, Emily Blunt is great. They had to have her character in here, but every decision they made with her character felt a little forced or unnecessary to me. I just didn't. Yeah, that was a big disappointment. So. But yeah, generally, I thought they made pretty good choices. It just didn't work.
Fair enough. I thought her performance was incredible, though. She sold every scene she was in really well. And I'm actually not always on board with her. Very on board with her here.
Oh, and I can say too, even both of these films, I think, as much as I didn't particularly enjoy them. I mean, they're certainly well made and they're like very slick and polished, and they go by fast too. I mean, they're generally paced pretty well. So I mean, as far as movies I didn't like, I mean, this would probably be on the upper end, of movies that I would say I don't like. I certainly understand a lot of the appeal here. We didn't talk much about Justin Theroux's performance. I thought he was really funny in a ridiculous sort of way. BJ Novak, I thought, was really good. The way he would punch Meryl Streep's shoulder all the time. She was so uncomfortable with that, or how he'd call her, he'd say guys, and then immediately have to correct himself. So people. And it was there was a lot of little moments like that. But the one of the other big things that kind of carried through the movie for me was all this espionage, like the assistant who slid the phone under the chair to record the conversation secretly, and like the double cross here and the double cross there, and this person going behind this person's back and that person's back, and then Stanley Tucci with the big reveal felt just kind of silly to me.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your criticisms. It was kind of fun that suddenly it felt like we were in a James Bond movie when they were taking the boat, that villa or whatever, and they were even playing like a big John Barry like score. Like it was just kind of like, whoa, what's going on? This is interesting, but yeah, maybe a little unnecessary.
Well, I'll say this, Jeff, I know you travel a lot. Sometimes you find yourself, and I just think this is almost certainly true for people who are in industries like this where you're adjacent to a lot of money. And even if you don't have any money, but people have assistants and people who work for them, sometimes you find yourself in like pretty crazy situations, not like a James Bond situation per se, but sometimes you would find yourself on a boat going towards a villa that looks insane. And like you ask yourself, how did I ever even get here? And that sort of brings me to the BJ Novak and Justin Theroux characters in particular. I loved so much because they just rang really true to me, because I think a lot of that world is much more buffoonish and less competent than we like to hope it is, because these are the people running the world. I don't know, if you ever find yourself in a place where there's a lot of influential people, you'll look around a room and be like, I think we're screwed. You just get that from watching the news now. I do want to call out in particular a moment that I thought was really cool, which was Theroux's Benny, his character's name, the mix, I think a mix between Jeff Bezos, explicitly Jeff Bezos, and then implicitly kind of Peter Thiel, giving this speech about how the Roman Empire was once the pinnacle of society, and we still have all these, relics of them, but they're gone. And we can't cling to things like Runway magazine so much. That's where the AI stuff came in. He was like, maybe, we don't even have humans doing the magazine in the future. I found that terrifying because he is a clown, but he is really dangerous. I thought the movie played with that in an interesting way. And I also like the way he was defanged at the end, but it had to be by another billionaire, which is not happy. It's not satisfying, but it is probably the only realistic way that was going to go down.
Yeah, not that the way to beat a billionaires with a billionaire. Yeah.
Right. A good guy with a billionaire beats a bad guy with a billionaire. Yeah, I didn't find it happy, but I found it realistic in a movie where I didn't need anything to be realistic, but I thought that was like a nice bonus.
I did like that, and I agree with you on that stuff. So.
Yeah. And Lucy Liu was just, she just continues to be the hottest woman that's ever lived. I mean, how does that work?
She was great. Most of the cast was great. I mean, I don't really have complaints with the performances. It's just...
I would say, if you like Lucy Liu, you should see this movie she did last year called Rosemead. It's a downer, but it's real good. She's excellent in it.
You could watch another movie she did last year called Presence. Steven Soderbergh ghost story.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Which is really good. Jeff, did you see Presence?
Yeah. I did. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I did like that movie a lot. Yeah.
Soderbergh already had a new movie this year. I can't believe.
Yeah, I saw it. It's good.
Is it
The Christophers? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Ian McKellen, tour de force, amazing movie. I'm fully on board for this like late stage Soderbergh, like small movie that's mostly just people talking thing.
Yeah, I love that guy that he hasn't slowed down. It's just awesome.
Yeah, although his next thing he wants to do like not a pirate movie. Oh, the Spanish Civil War. No, is it Spanish Civil War or something with the Spanish Armada? And he was saying he got in trouble or he got criticism because he's like, if I'm gonna do it, if any studio is gonna let me do it at the budget that they give me, there has to be AI in it. He's like, no one's going to give me enough movie to not do that. So as with the world of The Devil Wears Prada, the world of Steven Soderbergh movies is a little bit dystopian. I say, see this movie in theaters. You don't need, this movie is going to make $1 trillion. You don't need our recommendation, but we wanted to talk it out.
And honestly, I'm stoked that this movie is doing well and that people are going to see it. I mean, like any movie that drives people into the theaters. I'm not going to, obviously I said some bad things about it on this podcast, but overall I'm very happy for its success. And, I hope for more movies like it that people want to go see.
It's very cool that the movies are doing so well this year. The theater I went to is not usually packed. It was packed, and they were playing Michael Jackson music. I went there twice this weekend to see the animated movies, and then this. They're playing Michael Jackson music the whole time. So, you know, you have your showings of The Devil Wears Prada, which is doing great. You have your showings of Michael, which is cleaning up. It's great. It's awesome that movies will survive another year. Okay, so we'll be back next week with our best of 2025 episode celebrating 1,000 YouTube subscribers. Very exciting stuff. I think the following week, maybe if we can swing it, we will be back again with news of Jake's streaming festival. Tell us about that. I know you plug it next week, but plug it again now. Plug it first now.
Yeah, definitely. I'll plug it. Every year I do I make a letterbox list of what I call like a Z at the movies. That's like my that was like my film critic thing. And it's a Z at the Movie Streaming Film Festival. I stole this idea from my friend Dan Hogue. We used to go to the Traverse City Film Festival together. Jeff and I did as well. And then the Traverse City Film Festival eventually went belly up, doesn't exist anymore. So we just kind of started creating our own film festivals. It's like fantasy booking a film festival, and it's a lot of fun. And I just like finding movies. It's a mix of movies, you know, mostly newer movies, some older ones that I want to revisit. But it's just things that, you know, either I saw and really liked and didn't think enough people saw and want to just kind of draw some attention to, or some things that I want to watch and not forget about. So like, you know, when my wife and I are sitting around like, hey, what should we watch tonight? Well, let's, you know, look at this list of movies. I know there's things that we wanted to see on there. And yeah, like I said, if I can get anything out there to anybody else who's going through the same thing, like, hey, what should we watch tonight? Or looking for a good recommendation, you know, hopefully they can find something there. So I really like putting that together. It's a lot of fun.
I always look forward to you making that. So
yeah,
I'll definitely be looking at that list.
Thank you.
And listening to that episode, I hope.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for having me on so I could talk about one of my favorite movies as of 2 nights ago, Devil Wears Prada.
I better see it in your top 4 on Letterboxd.
Oh, well, we'll see.